What is up, everyone? Boschee here, and we are looking at update 3.2. So this literally came out like not even 10 minutes ago, and I saw like once I clicked on the link and saw new champions, I said, "Hey, I definitely need to make a video going over some of these and getting my first reaction rather than reading through them." So all we really knew about 3.2 was the fact that the artifact expansion, accessory expansion, and the champion collection expansion was coming in it. And then we had some high hopes of the daily login stuff coming in. Now I did scroll there very down to the bottom and kind of see if there's anything kind of cool out like beyond the champions. And it does look like they are doing the daily login reward expansion with this. There were rumors that's supposed to come with the Fragment Summon on Thursday, so we'll kind of see if they're able to introduce it at the like at the same time. That is a lot of stuff to put into the game. But it would be nice if they're able to add the expansion stuff along with the fragment summon and all this stuff on top of it. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump through these champions because I looked at the thumbnails or like the icons for them and they all look really cool. So I'm hoping that they have some really cool abilities. But yeah, so let's see. So, hey everyone, a new raid update's coming in hot. We're here to give you an early insight with update highlights. You can expect awesome new champions, a permanent extension of the daily login rewards, and some quality improvements. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump through it. So we have King Garog. He is going to be for the Orcs. So Orcs is getting another legendary on top of the fragments. So we have Gigantic Cleavers. Attack one enemy 2 times, has a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. The chance increases to 50% if the target's turn meter is equal to or below 50%. Not bad. Definitely a CC for waves, like maybe in Doom Tower or dungeons, but not going to do anything against boss. So that's kind of a bummer. But it does look like they're showing like what books are going to do for some of these champions, which is actually kind of nice for us to go when we're reviewing them. So we have the A2, Hack to Bits. Attack one enemy 4 times. Each critical hit has a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown of Gore Maker, which it looks like this is A3 by 1 turn, and this has a 4 turn cooldown. Looks like you can book it down to 3 turns, which is actually kind of nice. Let's see what Gore Maker does. So attacks all enemies will ignore 20% of each target's defense. Will ignore a further 5% of defense for each buff on the target. So this is actually kind of cool. So you can get this already down to a 3 turn cooldown. And if you do, like, this is going to be a heavy wave clear type champion, it looks like, because for each critical hit, you're going to decrease, you have a 50% chance to decrease this, and it's already at a 3 turn cooldown, and it's an AoE. And A2 is pretty much an AoE at this point, so yeah, this is going to be a very big AoE champion, it looks like. And then we have the passive. Increase this champion's speed by 6 and crit damage by 7% for each enemy this champion kills in a round. Stacks up to 30 speed and 35% crit damage. Stacks will reset if this champion's killed. Whenever an enemy champion is revived, fills this champion's turn meter by 30% for each revived enemy, then places a 50% increase attack buff and 30% increase crit damage buff on this champion for 1 turn. Yeah, that's a lot. Honestly, he's not going to do too much on bosses, it seems like, but he does seem like he is going to be a heavy wave clear. He might be useful in further Doom Tower content or even in Hard. He's going to have a lot of AoE, and I mean, with him ignoring some of the armor or the defense, yeah, I could see him actually being like a heavy nuker of some type. So, really cool. Roxam. Nice. Lizardman is getting another legendary. So he is an attack type, force affinity, chroma shift. He looks really cool in the icons, guys, so that looks really awesome. So chroma shift is his A1. Attack one enemy, has a 50% chance of filling this champion's turn meter by 10%. Also has a 50% chance of placing a perfect veil buff on this champion for 1 turn if this is critical. That's actually kind of nice just because he is a attack-based champion, so you're gonna want to kind of protect him in some types of way. Hopefully he has good multipliers. It does not look like we have any books on this side, so yeah, and they actually didn't mention where these new legendaries are going in. Maybe they're just being added into the game. So yeah, they're not Doom Tower specific or anything. It doesn't say at least, so On the A2, we have Jungle Ambush, attack one enemy, fill this champion's turn meter by 50%, has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff on the target for one turn when attacking while under a veil or perfect veil. Meaning if you do the A1 and you do end up perfect veiling yourself, you do have a guaranteed stun right here. You also have a 75% chance of placing a sleep debuff on a target for one turn when attacking without a veil or perfect veil. Alright, so they give you the better CC when you're under a veil or perfect veil, but they do give you a type of CC when you're not under it. Sleep is definitely not the greatest debuff, but it is some type of CC, especially if you have a lot of single target champions. And then places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns after attacking without. So, yeah, he is going to be heavy veil. You have a possible veil on the A1, a possible veil on the A2 if you don't have one existing. And this is going to be on a 4-turn cooldown, so that's kind of cool. Oh, and then we have some more stuff under veil or perfect veil, without perfect veil or veil. Alright, so while under veil or perfect veil, attack all enemies has a 100% chance, well, 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff and a 25% weaken debuff. Decrease the cooldown of jungle ambush by 2 turns. Um, wow, they're going very CC heavy, it feels like, because they've been adding a lot of champions with stuns just recently, because we just have obviously Roxam, we just had King Garog, and Iron Brego also has a stun on him, so maybe they're prepping us for something. Who knows? And then while not under a veil or perfect veil, attack one enemy has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff and 25% weaken debuff on the target for 2 turns before attacking. And then places a perfect veil on this champion for 2 turns after attacking. So, yeah, this guy is meant to literally protect himself. I actually kind of like the idea because he is a lizardman, so he's almost like a chameleon, it seems like, where he's kind of shifting into not being attacked and whatnot. So that's a really, really cool. And I honestly, guys, I did not look at the passive. So Chameleon is his passive. Places a block debuffs and a 20% strengthened buff on this champion for 1 turn, and a 15% continuous heal buff for 2 turns whenever they receive a veil or perfect veil. And then he has an increased crit rate in Doom Tower aura by 23%. This guy actually looks extremely fun to play around with. He protects himself. You don't have to really worry about that too much. Obviously, AoE hits are going to hit him, but if he's under Perfect Veil, he's going to take less damage. Yeah, he actually looks really cool. I would like to try him out if that is possible. And honestly, if this is true, like if they are taking this patch and putting it with the fragment summon, that means all these champions are going to be in the pool for the double ancient event this weekend. So that could be major. They might be doing something very similar to what I think they did last time with the Halloween event, where they had like a 2 times event for the new champions. So that would be really awesome if they paired that with the 2 times ancient. I'll definitely be summoning at that point if that's the case. But yeah, let's go on to the next one. So Iron Brego, we kind of went through in my last video. I'll go ahead and leave like a card at the very top of the video to go over him. But it does look like we do have his booking. So yes, his A1 is going to be able to go up to 30%. It looks like this is going to be, so his A2 is a 4-turn cooldown. They have a little bit misplaced here, so you can drop it down to 3-turn, and it can be 100% chance to do the stun, which we thought. And then it looks like his A3 is a 6-turn cooldown, which I thought in the original info that we got, it was a 4-turn. So yeah, that's a big difference. It looks like he can drop it down to 5 turns, but it is a 75% chance to land that provoke. So yeah, he hasn't changed too much with booking. It does look like he's going to require a lot of books, which I do not like. Once again, they need to cool down on the books for these legendaries. King Garog is a good 14 books, and it looks like Roxam we don't know about yet. Iron Brego is a good 4, 10, 16 books. Like, they're not giving us enough books as it is. So yeah, that is the very big turnoff about getting new champions, especially what you can't get excited about legendary champions if you're going to run into the issue of not being able to book them. So Yeah, that's not too great. Let's go on to Melga Steel Girdle. Nice, a dwarf. Thank you. More dwarves. So spirit type affinity. He is, or they are an HP type. And she's dwarven. So that's awesome. So inspiring violence is the A1. Attack one enemy has a 50% chance, and you can book it up to a 75% chance of removing a random debuff from a random ally. That's kind of nice. It's a support type ability. It is random and it is only a 75% chance, so that's a little bit weird, but hey, we'll take it. The A2 is places a shield buff on all allies to equal to 20% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. Also places a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. We can drop that down to a 3-turn cooldown. That is actually really nice. So she is going to be more of a support type champion, which is something we definitely need. Let's go to the A3. Glorious Return. Basic. So, okay. Revives 2 random allies with 20% HP and 20% turn meter. Another reviver in dwarves, and she's only an epic. That is huge, guys, because the only reser that we had in dwarves is Molly, and so yeah, her being an epic is just huge. And then if you ascend her, she revives 2 random allies with 20% HP, 20% turn meter, like normal, but also gets a shield buff on the revived allies for 2 turns, equal to 30% of their max HP. 7-turn cooldown, can reduce it down to 5 turns. Um, I'm calling it right now like S tier for dwarves just because it's an accessible res. And she has shields like pure support type champion. So this is actually really big. Definitely a champion I'll be going after just because dwarves are my favorite faction, first of all. And second of all, I don't have a reser. I did finish Dwarven Faction Wars, but yeah, definitely going after Melga. Next, we have Chancellor Yasmin. We'll kind of go one at a time, guys. Force type champion, support type, and banner lords. So, resounding smash is the A1. Attack one enemy. Very basic. Ascended is attack one enemy, places an extra hit if the target has no active buffs. Don't think that's really going to make too much of a difference. They are a support type champion, so I'd imagine the multipliers are not high. Then you have the A2, heals an ally by 40% of their max HP, heals by 60% instead if the ally has 50% HP or less. That's actually really cool, and you can drop this down to a 2-turn cooldown. So that's actually really big for Banner Lords. That's like a direct healer, almost like an apothecary. So yeah, that's kind of nice. Then we have L3, A3. Lulling Chant has a 50% chance, which can book up to 75% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies, and then placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn on all enemies who have active buffs. Um, so pretty much what they're doing is it's a buff stripper, but if you don't happen to remove all the buffs, it will put a sleep debuff. So a little bit of CC with it. Not a bad ability. Overall, I wish it was like 100% chance, and then if it was resisted, you put the sleep debuff, and that can't be resisted. That would have been a cool way to go around it, but not bad. Kind of like Hope in a Sacred Order, where you got the buff stripper, and then that's it. So not a bad champion. Yeah, direct healer, not too much to her kit though. And once again, more books, guys. It doesn't look like that that trend is going down, so look forward to that. Next, we have an epic Undead Horde. Like Undead Horde needed more champions. Vogoth. So Spirit Affinity HP type. Horrendous Strength is the A1. Attack one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 40% chance, if you book it, of increasing the duration of a random debuff on the target by 1 turn. They are sure liking stuns and random debuff increasing, decreasing. Um, they're doing some weird A1, guys. I don't know. I'm not sure if I like it or dislike it, but so not a bad A1. It does have a triple attack A1, so that's kind of nice. On the A2, Wave of Revulsion, attack all enemies, has a 75% chance if booked of placing a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Also has a 60% chance, which will be booked up to a 75% chance as well, of placing a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns on targets who receive the provoke debuff from the skill. So a little bit different from Brego. So Brego would apply the provoke, but would also just definitely apply a decrease attack. This sounds like you have to land the provoke in order to get the decrease attack. So not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of multiple things having to line up in order to use the full ability, but not a bad ability by any means. And the fact that it's on a 3-turn cooldown is a little bit better. So, not that bad. And then we have the A3, which is a passive. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by 50% of the damage received. Only heals by 25% of the damage received from boss attacks. This champion only receives half of the heals that all other allies receive. Okay, so they kind of mix this with Burgoth, where he took damage and he healed for a certain percentage. Obviously, I think Vogoth heals for a lot more. But yeah, this is an interesting champion. Depending on the basic stats, I'd imagine the health is going to be very, very high because of this little footnote of this champion only receives half of the heals that other champions receive. Um, yeah. So, well, it does say heals all allies. So maybe they're just talking strictly from this passive that it is actually going to heal itself, but only for 25% of it. So, if that's the case, that's definitely not a bad passive. It's hard to tell if undead champions are going to be good or not, just because they already have so many options. If you're looking in the faction war sense, in a general sense, this champion isn't amazing, but it could help lower end accounts with the provoke and with like the passive healing. And then we have the other passive, Eerie Presence. When attacked, places a leech debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. If the attacker is under a provoke debuff placed by this champion, also has a 75 or 70% chance 100% chance if booked of increasing cooldowns of random skills on the attacker by 2 turns. Um, yeah, I don't know, guys. What do you guys think of Vogoth? I don't think they are going to be an amazing champion. But it's definitely not a bad kit, a very unique kit. I mean, they did kind of take things here and there from people. Like their Wave of Revulsion sounds like something Iron Brego just got, and then Festering Dynamo is something like Burgoth. So yeah, they are taking from other champions, it seems like, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. Next, we have Armina, a magic affinity attack barbarian. On the epic side, so A1 discipline staff, attack one enemy has a 35% chance, can book it up to 45% chance of placing a stun debuff. There they go again with the stuns. Not sure what's coming. Trampling, so A1's not bad. A CC on the A1, like I always say, is a decent thing. The A2 attacking all enemies or attacks all enemies has a 75% chance. Looks like 100% chance if booked of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns, and then steals 7.5% of the turn meter from targets under decreased defense debuff. And it's a 4-turn cooldown. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work. I'd imagine it's based off the same thing. So like it's going to apply the decreased defense first and then do the stealing of the turn meter. It looks like they are separate abilities. So that is cool because you can book it to 100%. So you're definitely going to steal a certain amount of the turn meter, which is nice. So it's a drop defense and a turn meter manipulator. So not bad, especially on an AoE. Then we have Ear Splitter Bellow, which is A3. Decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 20%. Has a 100% chance, if booked, of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have their turn meter fully depleted, and that's on a 3-turn cooldown. So very heavy CC type champion right off the bat. This could be good for Faction Wars, could be good for Doom Tower. And then the passive fills this champion's turn meter by 10% each time an enemy receives a stun debuff. That could be huge. You have a stun on the A1, and you have an AoE stun possibly on the A3. So it could be definitely like in a stun set, could be very, very good. Um, yeah, so not bad, not bad. We have Ursula the Mourner. So an epic void affinity, nice, a void champion. Support type, and it's for banner lords. So we have the A1 Lance of Penitence, or Penitence, yeah, Penitence. Attack one enemy has a 55% chance if booked of decreasing a target's turn meter by 10%. Nice A1. It is only 10%, and it is only a 55% chance, but turn meter manipulation on A1 is never a bad thing. Look at Armiger. Obviously, Armiger's like leads ahead of everyone else, but then we have the A2, Waves of Grief. Attack all enemies. Has a 100% chance, if booked, of placing a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Also places a 50% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. And you can drop this down to 3 turn cooldown. That is really good, actually, for Banner Lords especially. So you have an AoE decrease attack, AoE increase attack. Really like that ability, actually. And then you have the A3 Requiem, revives all dead allies with 75% chance or 75% HP, then fills their turn meter by 50%, also places a 60% increased defense buff and a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 3 turns on a 6 turn cooldown, but can drop it down to 5. That is a really, really good A3, a really good revive in general. So you're reviving all your dead allies, 75% health, with increased defense and strengthen, and you're filling their turn meter by 50%. Um, Extremely good, guys. That is the definition of a void epic, honestly. So yeah, aura, increased speed in Doom Tower. That's actually really nice. I think that's the first speed Doom Tower specific aura that we've seen. So really, really good. Ursula seems to be an awesome champion. Then we have Annex, another undead epic. Not, I really wish they would stop doing undead hordes. Honestly, guys. Spirit affinity attack type. So A1 piercing shotels. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30% chance, 35% chance if you book it, placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. A single target decreased defense, but it's not 100%, so not bad. Yeah. The A2, attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 75% chance, 100% chance if you book it, of doing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff and a 5% poison for 3 turns. Can drop that down to 3 turns. So you can pretty much keep up 50% decreased accuracy and putting up a poison every 3 turns. Not a bad ability. We don't see a lot of decreased accuracy, so that's kind of nice. The fact that you can make it 100% is nice, and the whole attack one enemy like 2 times seems to be, it's on the A1 and the A2, so could be useful in multi-hitting like battles, like Fire Knight possibly. But yeah, not too bad. The A3, attack one enemy has a 100% chance if you book it of getting a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. Heals this champion by 50% of the damage inflicted. Can drop this down to 3 turns. Not bad. So it is a decreased defense on the A1, a weaken on the A3, a poison on the A2. So it does a lot, but all on separate abilities. So I guess you can bet on this champion always doing something every turn, but yeah, it's a little too separated for me. Then you have the passive Revenant. Passive effect is place a 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 2 turns when their HP drops below 75%. That's going to happen very easily. It's an attack type champion. Places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns when their HP drops below 50%. It's a little odd that that's not flipped. I guess they want you to prevent damage before you get that low with the increased defense. And then the active effect grants an extra turn when this champion's HP drops below 10%. I don't know about that one. The passive's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, but dropping below 10%, you're getting very, very dangerously low to getting killed. Um, so I'm not exactly sure what an extra turn is going to do for you unless you are in lifesteal. But if you're in lifesteal, you're not going to hit that low percentage anyway. So, very interesting passive, I should say. Yeah. Then we have uh, Fakrin the Fat. All right, this is an interesting one. So we have a Spirit Affinity attack type champion with the Barbarian faction. So Sizzling Strike is the A1. Attack one enemy has a 50% chance if booked of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. I don't know about these A1s guys. Like they're good they're good debuffs, but they have a decently low chance of landing. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going with all this, but um not a bad A1. Once again, decreased defense is a major debuff. It's just the whole fact of landing it. So there's that. The A2, Brand of Shame. Attack one enemy has a 100% chance of booking, if booked, of placing an HP burn debuff and 2 poison debuffs. And that can be dropped down to a 3-turn cooldown. And that's actually a really cool ability. Brings the HP burn and poison debuff, which is huge, honestly. Um, yeah, nothing much to say about that one. And then you have the A3 Beatdown. Places a 30% increased crit rate buff and 30% increased crit damage buff on all allies except this champion for 3 turns. Then all allies except this champion will attack one target enemy. And he can go on to a 4-turn cooldown. So that's actually kind of cool because it's like an ally attack, but not including that champion. The increased crit rate, increased crit damage is really nice, especially if you have a decent amount of nukers on your team. So I could see this being kind of good in PvP, just for the beatdown ability. The rest of the kit is definitely good for more or less dungeons. But yeah, overall, not a bad champion. I really like the A2 and A3. I wish the A1 was just a higher chance. The 50% chance, I experienced this with I forgot her name now, but the Void Epic champion that does a decreased defense has a 50% chance and literally will not land it. Oh, so why? So why? But yeah, so don't like the A1 as much. I wish it was a higher chance, but I love the A2 and A3. And then you have Body Block as the passive. Deflects 20% of all incoming damage this champion receives onto all allies. The damage will be spread equally. That could actually be kind of cool, especially in like a defensive type comp. If this is like your only attack type champion, could be really cool. Then we have the next one, which is Duke the Pierced. Magic Affinity Defense Orc. So they are adding another defense type champion in addition to Lord Brego, which is kind of cool, or Iron Brego, which is kind of cool. So we have the Mad Chopper A1. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 40% chance if you book it of placing a 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns. Not bad. Once again, low chance on these A1s to apply these debuffs. Not too amazing. Lunatic Outburst is the A2. Attack all enemies has a 100% chance if you book it of placing a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, the big version. Also, a 100% chance of placing a big decreased defense debuff for 2 turns on each critical hit. Um, hmm. That's an interesting I guess interesting part too. So, um, you're definitely going to do the decrease attack if you book it. And then also has a 75 or 100% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns on each critical hit. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. I guess it. Oh, okay, never mind. I just read that wrong. So, always gonna apply the decrease attack, but if you do critically hit, it will apply the decreased defense to whoever you critically hit. So, definitely be building this champion with 100% crit. Can drop that down to a 3-turn cooldown, so it's actually really good. You're getting a decreased attack and decreased defense. Kind of like a Stag Knight, in my opinion, honestly, so that's really good. Yeah, that's gonna be a really good epic champion to get, guys. Honestly. Now reading it again. Sorry, it took me a little bit. Then we have the A3 Shrieking Display. Places a provoke debuff for one turn on the target enemy. Also places a 75% chance of. Sorry, wow. Let me reread that. Places a provoke debuff for one turn on target enemy. Also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for one turn on two random enemies. And then places a 30% reflight damage buff on this champion for 2 turns and an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn. And you can drop this down to a 4 turn cooldown. Not a big fan of this. I see where they're going with this. They kind of want this to be kind of like, I believe, what, Crimson Helm, where you're kind of provoking random champions and then you're putting unkillable instead of block damage. And then you have the reflect damage. So kind of cool, kind of like a control type champion. But if you're going for Duke the Pierced, I would definitely be going for his A2 ability, not his A3 provoke. It is kind of a nice cherry on top, especially since he is a defensive type champion. Um, but definitely not a big fan of the A3. And then he has an aura, ally defense in faction crypts by 31%. I find it very interesting that they pretty much came out and said Iron Brego was for faction wars, but this guy looks exactly like like his kit is built for faction wars alongside his aura, so it's a little odd. But yeah, overall good champion. I think he'll actually be good in dungeons just for his A2 ability specifically. And his A1 can come in handy versus like dragon and stuff, or spider for the decreased accuracy, or even ice golem. So yeah, actually definitely ice golem because he is positive affinity there. So yeah, overall good champion. Um, wow, they're really challenging me with the names here. Sanguinea. Sacred Order, support type, magic affinity. This video is going to be extremely long, guys, so I'm sorry for that. There is a lot of champions. So we have the A1, Red Punishment. Attack one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 30% chance if you book it of decreasing the duration of 2 random buffs on the target by 1 turn. Cannot remove a debuff from this champion. Um, what? No, I'm confused. So each hit has a 30% chance of decreasing the duration of 2 random buffs on the target by 1 turn, and cannot remove a debuff from this champion. I'm not exactly sure what this means. Like, I don't know if that's just a passive effect, or if they meant decrease duration of 2 random debuffs on the no. I don't know what they mean by this, guys. This is a little weird. Yeah. Okay. Not a bad A1 from my understanding, I guess, more or less. It is a little bit. I think this last part is either it doesn't belong to this ability or something. I don't know. Let's move on to the A2. Holy Blood places a block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn and a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 3 turn cooldown. Definitely not a bad ability. I wish the block debuffs was for more than 1 turn. It does look like they will place the block debuffs first, so this could be good against Tormund, depending on if it works in this order. Because I know there's a lot of champions that have the correct order, but they do not place the buffs that way. So, yeah, could be interesting. The A3, Sacrificial Lamb, attack one enemy, has a 100% chance if you book it of transferring all debuffs from this champion to the target, and then removes all debuffs from all allies except this champion. Um, so has a 100% chance of transferring all debuffs from this champion to a target, and then removes all debuffs from all allies except this champion. So it's pretty much a cleanse, but you're transferring all your debuffs to the target that you attack, which is kind of nice. Overall, not a bad ability. Could come in handy in niche events, and it can be on a 4 turn cooldown, so not bad. And then you have ally accuracy in Doom Tower battles by 5 or 55. I could see this actually be kind of cool in or the Nether Spider, especially if you have like a very long running fight. you could actually transfer all the poisons to the Nether Spider, and then remove all the poisons from your people. So this could actually be really cool, now that I think about it. So yeah, not a bad champion. Then we got Old Hermit Jorg, or Jorg. Magic Affinity support Orc. Orc is getting a bunch of love, it seems like, in this patch. The A1 Putrid Brazier. Attack one enemy, has a 40% chance if you book it of placing HP burn debuff for 2 turns. Seems to be a running pattern with a lot of these champions. Really good debuffs on the A1. They just have low chances of landing. So I'm not a big fan of that, but I guess we'll see where it goes. The A2, place a 50% increase buff or increase attack buff on all allies for 2 turns and fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Can drop this down to 3 turns. Kind of a cool ability. It is nice to see the increase turn meter on another champion other than like things like Apothecary and stuff like that. So that's really nice. It reminds me of pretty much like Seeker, right? You have an increased attack and a turn meter fill. So really cool. And then Ghost Walk is the A3, revive 2 random allies with 60% HP, then fills their turn meter by 40% and places a Perfect Veil buff on them for 2 turns. And you can drop that down to 5 turns. Really, really good Orc champion, honestly. Not too many books. Looks like 8 books total. Yeah, I like this champion a lot. And then finally, the last champion, Hugo or Ugo. Magic, support type, and Ogren tribe. So we have a new epic Ogren. On the A1, we have Black Hand. Attack one enemy, has a 35% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. The chance increases by 5% for each enemy alive. That's kind of a cool buff. Not huge against bosses, obviously, because all faction bosses, it could go up to what, 45% chance. But against, normal waves, it's a decent chance of applying the leech, which is always nice. Leech is always a nice buff to have, or debuff, I should say. The A2, attack all enemies, has a 100% chance if you book it of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 75% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. The chance of placing the block buffs debuff increased by 5% for each enemy alive. So definitely going to excel at the very beginning of wave fights. I do like the whole decreased defense is 100% and the block debuffs only being 75%. It's not a huge debuff, so I'm not worried about that one. The key one is the decreased defense. So not a bad ability, and you can drop that down to 3 turns. Then you have Ugo's Brew. Remove all heal reduction debuffs from all allies, then removes 1 random debuff from all allies, then heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP. If all allies are dead, revives them with 50% HP, then fills their turn meter by 50% instead, and you can get this down to a 4-turn cooldown. I really actually like the utility of this ability, just because of the fact, like, great, it removes heal reduction, but you can also remove a random debuff along with healing all allies, but it's also a pseudo revive. So, really, really good ability overall. I definitely think he or they are going to be key in Ogren tribes for faction at the very least, but I feel like this is actually going to be a decent champion for dungeons. And then you have the passive Final Spite, places a 30% increased speed buff and a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn whenever this champion's last living ally is killed. That's actually a really good passive considering you can get this heal and or the revive off. So, very very unique passive. So that's pretty cool. And then they talk about the daily login rewards will be coming, which will be the rotating over and over and over. So yeah, that's really nice. Hopefully that means this patch is actually very soon and comes with the fragment summon. And then they say more slots for your champion collection, artifact storage. Champion collection will go up from 200 to 300, and from artifact storage 700 to 1,000. this is really good. We talked about this in the Iron Brego video. And clan boss battles will always start in manual mode rather than auto battle. This is kind of just a nice thing because I personally have unkillable, and it's kind of annoying if you don't catch the auto battle in time, because then you have to close the game out and restart. But yeah, overall, guys, this is a lot of champions. A lot of good champions, in all honesty. They are definitely not bad champions, so definitely let me know what you guys think of all the champions in this list. Like I said, I'm hoping this patch comes with the fragment summon, because that just means the ancient 2 times. You'll have a chance of getting pretty much all of these champions. I think we had one void champion in here. We had Ursula, which was a extremely good void champion, but everything else was possible through ancients, it seems like. They don't really say where these champions are coming from, so I'd imagine they're going to be open for ancient shards or sacreds or whatever. But yeah, so we'll see. But they are all epics and legendaries, and they all seem to be requiring a lot of books, unfortunately. So yeah, but definitely kind of a nice thing to see with all these champions being added. I like the fact that they are unique. And I like the fact that they seem to be in areas that need them, right? So you have Lizardmen, Orc, Undead kind of got a couple, which I didn't think they needed, but Dwarves definitely needed this champion. Definitely be gonna be going after her. But yeah, overall, guys, seems like a very, very good update overall. But yeah, definitely let me know what you guys think down below. Um, and let me know if I missed anything. I know I kind of just did this like right away once I saw the update. But yeah, I wanted to kind of get a video out real quick and kind of go over and get my first reaction. So, yep. But yeah, I hope you guys liked the video, and I will talk to you guys later. And don't forget to leave a comment down below talking about everything. See ya.